everybody, welcome to the final class of Aviatrix. Again, I apologize for this being not live. As you know, I had lost power yesterday or earlier today. It's quite early in the morning right now. I'm not showing my face because I am in my pajamas. I just really wanted to get this all done and up for you guys because of what happened yesterday without being able to go live. So I apologize. I just woke up and this is what I'm doing right off the hop because I really want to get this up to you guys. So yes, please do put down in the comments that you were here and so I can mark that down, and let's get to finishing our aviatrixes. Okay, so like I said last class, we're going to start with the lining panels because this is the hardest part, getting this and these put together. So for our lining main panels, what we want to do is we want to mark a line on the back of these to prepare them for the drop-in lining. Let me find my white pen. There you are. So if you're looking at the pattern, we are on page 14, step 1. So on the back side of our two main lining panels, we want to draw a line 3/4 of an inch down from the top. Hopefully that pen will stay on there for me, because we're not going to be doing much with this just yet. We just want to mark it now while it's still easy to mark. Okay. Next, we want to take our, let me see, center divider pocket here. So we are now we're stepping back a little bit here. We need to put on our flap onto this. So we are back stepping to, let me find it. Where are you? Installing zipper, adding the bottom. So you are going to need your flap pieces, the bottom flap one. So this one here. So this is, trying to find my spot here. That is the accent flap lining. Okay. So we are on page 10 and we are looking at step number 28, and we're going to be marking another line. So on the back side of our center divider, which is this side here, we want to measure down by the measurement in the pattern on page 10, step 28, with an erasable pen on this back side. So from the zipper, and draw that line. Again, make sure it's the side that does not have the card slots on it. Just like so. And then we're going to take the lining side of our bottom flap and we're going to put, I'm actually going to put some double-sided tape on the inside here as well. You can decide if you want to do this or not. You don't have to. I'm going to, just so I know it's staying closed. Bring those edges together. And then on this lining side, we're also going to put some double-sided tape. Like so. And on this exterior side, we're going to draw some more lines. So the measurements here are in step 27 for a box we're going to draw on the exterior side of our flap here. So and that is going to be a guide for when we go to stitch this on. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to find the center of this, again, with an erasable pen. Just going to put it right about there. As well as you want to find the center of this. So find your centers right about there, I believe. Bring it in just a little bit more. Very important that it is centered because we want our snaps to line up later on. Looks good. Then you're going to remove the paper off your double-sided tape. And we are going to have this right side up like so, matching up that center along that line that we drew. And stick it down right at that line. Again, measure again from these sides to make sure we are definitely centered. And I am dead on. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to flip everything out of the way except for the back part of our divider pocket. Make sure the lining and everything is scooched out of this way. And what we're going to do is we are going to sew along this rectangular box that we have all drawn out there. All right. Put it into a top stitching length. And again, make sure you're only sewing through the flap and the back part of our flap here. Back stitch at start and stop. Okay. Okay, so that is what that looks like so far. Now you can put on some optional rivets, which I am going to do just to make this a little more secure. I'm going to put one on the end here, one in the middle, and one on this side here. And I'm going to have to use this punch to get that center one. Quite centered right there. Okay, and I need my rivets. Where are you? Please hold. Gotta get my rivets. There they are. I'm also going to back these with some scraps of Decovil Heavy. Get in there. Didn't punch all the way through. Let me punch that one again. Trim this up a bit. And set those in place. I tell you, we have clear blue skies today. The thunderstorm watch is over. This is good. All right. So that's what we have. Now I'm just going to quickly wipe my pen marks off here in case it doesn't want to come off my vinyl later on. She looks good so far. All right. Now we're heading to the harder part. So we are now looking at, seeing as I've jumped all the way around, I apologize for that. We've finished adding that bottom flap. Now we are jumping over to page 14 again. Page 14, step 3. What we want to do is we want to bring our divider pocket. We've already basted that center one, the lining, but we want to now baste the exteriors into that as well. So bring your exteriors together at the center marks with the lining. And clip in place. And now we're going to sew across there with the seam allowance stated in step 3. Or based across there anyways. All right, so far so good. Deep breaths. This is the hardest part of the whole bag. So now we are looking at step 4 on page 14. Now you are going to notice that the divider is shorter than this, and that is okay. So what we want to do is, let me double check here. We want to take our main back lining. Now in this one, we have the slip pocket as the main back lining. And we want to line up our bottom centers here, like so. So they're both right side up. So you should have your card slots up here. You should be seeing the lining side of your flap. We're going to line up this bottom here. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to baste that in place. The basting helps hold everything where we need it to go because we are going to be kind of maneuvering this because it's going to create those box sides and those box corners. Okay, so this is what it looks like right now. Now, I want to take my erasable pen and I'm going to make a mark from this top here, about 1 inches to 1.5 inches down. I'm going to go 1.5, but you can do about 1 inch too. I'll go 1 inch. That's what the pattern says. I'm just going to make a mark. Now it's at that point where we're going to branch out the seam allowance. And I'll show you what I mean here momentarily. So we are now on step 4. Now, this is not going to come all the way to the top of the lining panel. That is what we want. Now you want to take all these sides here. I guess we could have basted these, but we didn't. Going to line them all up and we're going to bring it up to this one like so. Okay. We're going to clip in place. We're going to make sure this is sitting nice and straight. Line up all of those raw edges. Okay, so we're just working with that one side right now because I'm just trying to make this as easy as we can. So in the pattern, we're putting the lining onto it right away, but we are going to go ahead and we are going to baste this first side first, and then we will put this one on. So this marking here, we did not need to do as I'm reading through it. It should be on the back of this one, but let's go ahead and just baste the side so it is in place. Just to make it as simple as we can. Okay, so we got that one side in place there. Oops, I missed part of it there. And now we want to take our front lining panel, so that's the one with the zipper pocket. We're going to put it right sides together, and it's on this one. We're going to line up our sides here. We want to make sure that our flap is tucked out and out of the way because we do not want to get that all caught up in there. Bring this right sides together, and we're going to match up the lining and back panel. So it's going to be sandwiching that zipper panel in there, and these will come all the way up. So again, that 1 inch mark that we just drawn, we did not need to do that. I was not thinking right. Okay, so clip those all together. Make sure that center divider is being caught in there, and it is. Got some funky stitches happening there. Let's just pull those out. Very important you catch all of these layers in the stitch. Let me turn that sound off. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we'll make sure everything is folded out of the way, that flap is out of the way. And this is where, from about an inch or so down here, we're going to go down about there. We're going to do the regular seam allowance, and then we're going to branch out into that larger seam allowance, which is all stated in step 4 on page 14, just on this side. So here, regular seam allowance for about an inch, and then branch out to the bottom of this box corner, and it'll almost match up with where this little cutout is here. I know it looks funky, and just go with the process. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so again, make sure you are not sewing through your flap or anything. It's tucked out of the way. For about the first inch or so, go down with your regular seam allowance. Make sure to backstitch. Make sure everything is being caught and nothing has shifted. Okay, and then we're going to start, and I've shifted. One moment, please hold. I shifted. You've got to make sure that that divider stays sandwiched between the layers. Mine wanted to shift, so we are going to put even more clips in there. Okay, do this again. Now, depending how wide your foot is here, to get past that zipper end, you may need to put on your zipper foot. I think I'll be okay. So about an inch, and then we're going to start branching out. And this is just going to make it so the lining sits nice and tight inside. All the way down at that larger seam allowance. This corner looks funky, and it should. Do not worry about it. It'll all make sense here in due time. Okay, I'm just going to double check. Make sure your flap was caught on the inside on both sides. And it was. Okay, back to the table. Okay, so you see smaller, larger seam allowance. Everything was caught down here on both sides. Now we're going to do the same with the opposite side. So again, I'm going to make sure my flap is out of the way. But we're going to do it all in one swoop this time. So we're going to just make sure everything is lined up. I'm going to actually line up the raw edges of my side panel here first. Again, we could have basted these. That might have been faster or easier, but okay. We're going to match up the side with the back part here and add it into those clips. And that gets that all into place where we need it to be. I'm actually going to put this inside the zipper pocket so it stays out of my way. Get in there. We don't want to accidentally sew through that flap. for any reason. Okay, now we're going to bring the other side over, match it up at the bottom, add it into the clips. Use a lot of clips if you need to. And all the way to the top. Then we're going to sew this just like the other side, regular seam allowance to about 1 inch below the top, and then branch out into that larger seam allowance. So this is what it looks like. Now you'll see the divider pocket, look, it's starting to form that kind of faux gusset on the sides. So the divider pocket is smaller than the linings. Okay. Again, make sure you're only sewing through the right layers that you're sewing through. Smaller seam allowance. Important that the seam allowance is accurate for when we go to drop this in. They have to be the same size. Okay, and then branch out. Again, we branch out so we can have a nice and snug lining. Back stitch. Kind of look in and make sure everything was caught. Looks good. That looks good. Perfect. All right, deep breaths. This is what it looks like so far. Make sure that your divider pocket was all caught everywhere, and it was. So that takes us now to step 6. Okay. And we can go ahead and we can now baste this other side on. Just like so. And we can baste across here. Just across the bottom. Okay, so let's go baste that right across the bottom. And you can see why you don't want to be using a thick vinyl here. You can already feel how thick those seams are getting. Let me just double check something here. One sec. Yeah, okay. So with 1/4 inch, you can sew it. We're not basting it now. We're actually sewing it. So. Okay, now we're to the tricky part. Okay, so we have the inside pretty much done except for the boxing of these corners. So this is the hardest part. What we want to do is we want to open up these seams best we can. I think I'm just going to end up nesting them. You can go ahead and you can actually trim the seam up just a smidgen if you wanted to. It's up to you. Just these side seams. Especially if you basted it because you want it to be able to feather it open. Okay, so here's the lining exteriors here, and here is that slit or the divider pocket. So what we want to do is we want to pull these out. Now you're going to notice, it's so hard to show this, that the divider pocket is a smaller boxed corner, and that is okay as long as it's getting caught in to the seam. So I'm actually going to nest these. So I'm going to do one seam going one way, the other seam going the other. This is the hardest part, the hardest part. So it sometimes helps to do the lining first, and you'll see there it shows right there. See how my lining box corner is much smaller? bring the bottom and the side seams together, bringing all of those layers together like so. Making sure, see here, you can see how it's smaller. That is okay. We're going to catch all of that later on when we go to sew this. So nest those seams. And this doesn't have to be perfect because it's not going to be seen. You just want to make sure you're catching all of those layers of that divider pocket into this box corner like so. You can see mine's not pretty. That is okay. We're going to sew across there and it's all going to be fine. This is where it gets thick, depending, even with the waterproof canvas, I can see how thick it is. We're going to do the same with this other side and then we'll sew them all at the machine. So again, I'm pulling apart my lining. Then I'm going to reach in and grab all the layers of that divider pocket, bring my side and bottom seams up to match each other, pinching them together, making sure that they're all caught there. Again, the divider pocket will be smaller in that box corner, like so. See, smaller. We will be catching it. Hardest part, I promise. Nobody's going to see these bottom box corners. It's just going to make it so it sits nicely in the bottom of the bag and closes up everything. So don't worry about it if it's not perfect. Just make sure all of those layers are caught. See how it's smaller? Can you guys see that? As long as it's centered. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to sew across each of those box corners with the seam allowance. In step 6 there. And I'm actually going to do 2 lines of stitching maybe. We will see. Actually, I probably don't have to, just to make sure everything stays in place. This is the hardest part, you guys. Hardest part. And it's not hard, it's just thick. So kind of squish that box corner down. Again, if this isn't perfect, you can take a larger seam if you need to as well, as long as everything is getting caught. What am I trying to do here? Get in here. Just make it so it goes somewhat flat and then sew across. And this is the part that will be thick, right? Going over this seam if you didn't choose your fabrics wisely. I almost need a hump jumper there. Backstitch well. And you will see my seam is not pretty. Can you see that? It is not pretty, but that's okay. Nobody's going to see it. It's all about closing it up. Same with the other side. Get in there. Just a matter of closing up those corners. And this makes it so nothing will fall underneath the divider pocket. It's closing in those sides 100%. Again, I'm just double checking. I can see I have my divider pocket all pinched in there, which is what I want. Don't want any holes. Okay, and I'll be able to show that better at the table now because you can kind of see what I mean. So, clip, 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 clip. Okay, so here you can see, there's my divider pocket is shorter than the rest. That's okay, as long as everything got caught. I'm going to trim the seam allowance down, just to reduce some of that bulk. When you pull that out, when you look inside, you'll see it's perfect. Even if those corners are messy, you are never going to know. Okay, last thing we have to do with this, again, stick your flap back down inside so it's out of the way. Put it back in the pocket. Pocket holds it nicely. Now we want to prepare the lining for the drop-in lining. So I'm going to take some double-sided tape, put it along that line that we drew previously around the perimeter. When you get to the sides, butterfly your seams open like so and hold it with tape all the way around. We're done the hardest part, you guys. Absolutely, that was the hardest part, was those corners. It's not hard, it's just more awkward, but it is so worth it, I promise you. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and we are going to fold the raw edge down to that line. Down. And I'm going to use some clips to hold it in place just because waterproof canvas doesn't always like double-sided tape, and to make sure that it's all held in place for when we're done the exterior. Put in there. All the way around. There we go. And that is our lining complete with our flap all put in. Oh, I didn't share my zipper tape here. So you can go ahead and you can put the lining aside for now. Now we can finish up the exterior. Let me just clean this up and I'll be right back. Okay, so we need to take our main front panel, and like we did before, we want to transfer our marks for our female snap placement. So with our this is very important because it is asymmetrical. With our exterior right side up and our pattern piece right side up, we're going to lay it on top. And we are going to mark, I can do my top and bottom centers too. This one. Our magnetic placement. So there and there. I'm just going to make sure it's lining up good as well. I'm going to do my top and bottom centers, which I haven't done yet. You want to make sure you get this placement really good. So double check again. Center and center. There. There. Yep. And then we're going to go and install our females. Now before I slit this, I'm actually just going to take, because it's your lining flap that will be going there, this side of it. So I just want to make sure, so this wrong lining side, I just want to make sure that they work, and they do. That's perfect. Just making sure the placement is 100% good. And go ahead and install those backed with pieces of heavy stabilizer as well. Stabilizer, prongs, or not prongs, washer. I like to mallet them down. Other side. Stabilizer, washer. Okay. And then you can also go ahead and install your nameplate. Can't remember if we say so. My nameplate I'm going to install, and you can kind of cheat. You can go like this and snap that in and kind of see where you want to place this. So I think I'm going to place mine thinking that it's box corner. Remember, this is going to be up like so, right about there. So I'll tell you where my placement is, and I'm just eyeballing it. So I'm making it kind of even with the edge of my magnetic snap here, and I'm about 3.5 inches up from the bottom. 3.5. Again, this is different for everybody based on how big your nameplate is. So you just kind of eyeball it. Now, where did I put my washer? So I'm going to put it right there. It's going to work for me. Right there. Yes, that'll be perfect. Go ahead and install your nameplate. Again, eyeball it if you're installing a handmade tag or a nameplate, because all tags are different sizes, so you just never know. Mine's going to go right there. Make sure that's nice and straight. Nothing worse than when you don't have it on straight. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, and then on the back, I'm going to take my, if I can find it, my duct tape. There it is. Put it on the back of the prongs and the back of this. Just to protect it from rubbing on the lining panels when we put it together. Okay, and you can kind of see again, if you put the lining side down, how that's going to fall. If they, once these corners are boxed, that'll be perfect. All right. that is the front panel complete. Now we just want to draw a 3/4 of an inch line down the back side. Pen, pen, pen. To prepare for the drop-in lining later on. Okay, so you can set that panel aside for now. Then we're going to bring out our exterior flap, connector, and back panel pieces. So that finishes off page 14. And we're going to backtrack. Again, I jumped all the way around. I obviously failed. We are now at the strap connector on page 11. Okay. So you want to take your strap connector. Okay, make sure I have the center line already drawn out. This is for 3/4 inch hardware, so this is 1.5 inches, and the line is drawn at the 3/4 inch mark. I'm going to take some double-sided tape, put it down at that center. Oops. And then fold the long edges into that center line. Okay, then you're going to make another mark on the wrong side of this. This is step 3. It tells you how much to measure in from each of the short ends. I'm going to take some more double-sided tape. And you can use clips if you prefer. I'm going to put it right on the ends of these short ends. Okay, and then we need our D-rings. It's the last of the hardware to install. We're going to slide it on, take off that tape, and we're going to fold the short end to that line that we had drawn, like so. Same with this side, to that line. Next on, make sure that looks good. We want to draw a 1/2 inch line away from the fold where the connector is. This is for sewing later, is a 1/2 inch. Okay, and then on the wrong side, we're going to do some more double-sided tape. Just like so. Okay, and then we want to take our flap. You've got to make sure you situate this properly. I'm going to find my center of the raw edge of my flap. I also want to find the center of this connector. Oopsies. And mark it on both sides. Okay, so this is step 6. So what we want to do is we want to take our connector is right side or wrong side up. We want to take our flap lining side up, and we want to line it up along the bottom here. Nice and centered. So make sure you're lining up that center mark with the center mark about 1/8 of an inch away from the bottom of the connector. This is going to enclose that raw edge, so you got to make sure it's into the seam enough, like so, so it gets caught but won't show. See? And then on this side, you can't see it, but it's going to catch that whole raw edge. So this is what that looks like. Okay. I'm going to take some more double-sided tape. Oh, let me turn that off. So if you're using cotton, you can definitely pin this instead, but I'm not. So I'm just going to put it along this edge here. Bye, Brady. Kid is going to work. Okay. Now, before we go any further, what we want to do on the wrong side of our main back panel is draw our 3/4 inch line for when we go to do the drop-in lining. It's easier to do this now than later. All the way across. Just like so. Okay. Now we want to measure down. We are at step 7 on page 11. So you're going to measure down as per the pattern measurements there and draw a line with an erasable pen. Also make sure you mark that center. Okay, so it looks like that. Then we're going to take this, and we have our center still marked here so we can see it's nice and centered. Take the tape off of here. And we're going to put this right at that line, nice and centered, and stick it down. I'm going to double check that we are definitely centered. And we are. Okay. So now what we're going to do, and I'm going to put on one of my zipper feet so I can get nice and close to the hardware. I'm going to pull my threads along to the back so I won't be tack stitching at all, back stitching. You can decide if you want to back stitch or not. I'm going to pull mine to the back, but we're going to go top stitch all the way here, down here, across, up, and back. And then we're going to pull our threads to the back and tie them off. Okay, so I said I'm going to change into my left zipper foot here because it helps me get nice and close to that hardware. Double check that I have enough bobbin thread, and I do. All right, so again, I'm going to pull my threads along and tie them off in the back. and top stitch all the way around. Right at that line that we had just drawn, needle down and pivot, and you can see how close I can get to the hardware with this foot. Go ahead and pull this to the back. Needle down at that line and pivot. And then making sure my needle goes down in that same spot. If you're tying them off in the back, you can also just backstitch if you prefer. I'm going to tie mine off. Gives such a nice seamless line when you tie them off in the back. Perfect. Done. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and install some rivets. So we're going to install one right here and right here. Try to see, did I install any in the back on my other ones? Let me look. We can do 2 or we can do 3. Oops, I only did 2 on my other ones, so that's all we'll do. Okay. And of course, you'll back those rivets with scraps of heavy stabilizer. Pretty easy, hey? This is what I have here. You can tell how messy my desk gets. Holy moly. I highly recommend putting the rivets in here because it's just going to really help that connector have the strength for when this is being worn as a crossbody. All right. That's what that looks like. And this should pop right into the exterior of this. If you want to kind of see what that looks like, make sure everything fits. And it does. Okay, let me clean the table up and then we'll come back and we'll finish putting the rest of the exterior together. All right, home stretch. So this is what we got for the exterior, all done. What we want to do now is we are now on page 15, step 3. So we want to take these, we want to put them right sides together, and match up the center bottoms and clip that in place. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and sew across there with the seam allowance in step 3 on page 15. You actually can change into your regular foot now. I don't need this one anymore. Okay. Okay, and then what we want to do is we actually want to open up the seam best we can. Okay, so I'm just going to finger press it open. Actually, I'm going to grab some double-sided tape to keep it open. Let me find my tape. So you can finger press it. If you're using a material you can iron that open. I'm going to just use double-sided tape for mine. On both sides of the seam. So we can press that open, because then we're going to top stitch the seam in place on both sides of that sewn seam, and it gives it a really nice decorative stitch. So open up that side. Go. And then we're going to top stitch on both sides of that bottom seam. On the other side. All right. Okay, and now it's just very much like how our lining was. We're going to put this right sides together, kind of fold your hardware in so it's out of the way. We're going to line up these top and bottom sides. Straight thread. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and sew down those sides with the seam allowance. Being careful not to sew through your flap, of course. Really stuck on. There we go. Very important you get an accurate seam allowance, especially at the top. Because we need our linings and everything to fit together perfectly. So they have to have the same circumference. Just going to check my seams to make sure they're not stressed out. No, we're good. Good. Okay, that's good. Now we have to box the corners. So we're going to open up this seam here, like so, and bring it down to the bottom seam, making sure they're flared open and they line up, and then clip in place. Same with the opposite side. Bring the side seams and the bottom seams together, opening up those side seams, lining them up. So much easier than lining. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and sew across those box corners. And on these corners, I'm actually going to go in with another line of stitching just for security. 1/8 of an inch in from that seam into the seam allowance. You don't have to, but I'm going to just in case. Just in case it needs a little extra something. Same with the other side. We're almost done, you guys. Oops. You can see why we did the lining first, because it was the hardest part. Get it done and over with. Because the exterior is actually the easiest part. It is so easy. Oopsies. Oops. My needle came unthreaded. Darn you. Please hold. Get in there. Oh my goodness. I never have problems threading my needle. Now I'm overthinking it. Come on, get in there. There we go. Whew, pressure was high. All right. All righty. So we can go ahead and we don't have to trim those ones up. We can go ahead and we can turn this right side out now. Oh, my wrists are so sore. You can definitely see why I need a holiday for July. Rest up my poor wrists. This is the only turning we have to do because it's a drop-in lining. Okay, let's get it in there. Make sure you push out your corners good. Check them. Beauty, look at that. Perfection. Perfection. Oh, those corners look great. Get your knife, make sure these all snap into place okay. Actually, that doesn't go into that place. Never mind. That's where the lining snaps in. So yes, these will not snap into there no matter how hard you try because they don't belong there. Okay, so that's what that looks like. Now we just need to prep this for drop-in lining. So along that line we drew on the other side, we're going to put some double-sided tape or clips, whichever you prefer, all the way around. When you get to the side seams, make sure to open those side seams out so they reduce bulk. Don't want it to be too bulky in those corners. Same with the other side. Come on, hands work. Okay. Okay, and then we want to fold that raw edge into that line. Again, I'm going to use clips again just so my glue doesn't give way. Oopsies, come on, my tape is not wanting to stick. Come on, tape, work for me. There we go. My tape went weird there. Let's do this again. Right here, my tape is not behaving. So I'm going to take the tape off and put another strip there. I'm not sure why it's not behaving. It's creating a little bit of a tuck there, and I don't want that. Fresh tape. make sure it's all lying nice and flat. Almost done. Love the home stretch of a bag. All right. Now we get to put it all together. So we're going to take our lining. We want to make sure we have it situated properly so both of the flaps are towards the back. I'm actually going to take this flap and I'm going to tuck it inside that pocket again. Just make sure it is the back of your bag going with the back of your bag when you drop this in. So go ahead and drop the lining into the exterior. In there nice and snug. Okay. And what we're going to do is you'll see, we can still see here where my center snip was. I'm going to find it on my exterior and I'm going to find it on my lining and I'm going to make sure they line up. And that's where I'm going to mark my first quarter section and clip in place. Do not be scared of clips here. Make sure they're nice and even. Do the same on the back. Find your center marks, make sure they line up, and then line up those folded edges nice and even. Keep clips to hold in place. Okay, then move over to the sides and match up those side center seams of the lining in the exterior. Double checking that your seams are butterflied open, and a couple clips to hold in place. You're going to have to be so aware of that when we're sewing this together that we are not sewing through that flap. And other side. Match up the centers. And then that's our quarter sections. And then all we have to do is evenly distribute the fabric around those quarter sections. Okay, go ahead and finish clipping it around, lining up folded seam all the way around. It should fit perfect. As long as we had all accurate seam allowances, you should be laughing. It should be so easy. Again, I use 1,000,001 clips. You definitely don't want anything to shift. Onto the back. So you also would want to make sure we're not sewing through this flap either. So you're going to have to be very, very aware of where your flaps are hanging out so you don't accidentally sew through them. Come on, get there nice and even. Last section. Get in there. Make sure everything's lying nice and flat. Okay, and now it's time for the top stitching. So if you're on a flatbed machine, you're going to make sure that your bobbin thread is really nice because it's what's going to show on the outside. And you are going to top stitch all the way around the inside, turning your bag around like this. If you have a free arm or a cylinder arm like me, we're going to put it on the machine like this. We're going to make sure that flap's out of the way, and we are going to top stitch it all the way around like this. So let me just get my Tommy machine all set up, and then we will get this all finished up. All right. I just realized you guys are going to see my pajamas. That's okay. I'm wearing Baby Yoda today. Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda. Okay, so now let's go ahead and top stitch this. So I like to start on the back because I can back stitch and the flap will hide that back stitch mark. So that's always a bonus. Let's do this. And you'll see I don't do this fast by any means. I just kind of go clip by clip, making sure that everything is staying nice and lined up. I'm holding my flap out of the way as well as I'm making sure I know where my flap is on the inside with my other hand. Making sure you get all of the layers. I love drop-in linings just because you get to skip the step of having to turn it through the bottom or a pocket and then top stitch it. It's like you get to skip 2 steps doing it this way. Drop-in linings is the #1 reason, well, I guess and for top stitching, that I bought the cylinder arm. It just makes things so much easier. Your needle is down when you have to adjust. Now these side seams will be the thickest, so you may need a hump jumper. I think I'm okay. This patina isn't too bad for thickness. Oops, throwing clips everywhere. Again, making sure you know where that lining flap is. Coco says hi. Tell Dave's home because the dogs are pretty quiet today. back stitch at the end. She's gorgeous. Oopsies, put you guys in the dark. There we go. Look at that. Okay, where is my lighter? I don't know. There it is. So you want to go around and just kind of make sure everything was caught all the way around. And it was. I'll probably have to steam this a little bit, just get some of those wrinkles out. You pull out your flap, do up your lining zipper pocket. Oh, this canvas is perfect for this bag. Okay, so let's see what we got. We got our back section with our slip pocket. We have our front section. Pretty big. Card slots. Zipper pocket in the middle. And the moment of truth, all of our snaps should fit together. It does. And then these ones to this one. Grab your crossbody strap. Hook her on. Look at that, guys. We're done. She looks amazing. Amazing. Oh, and her back zipper pocket. Great job. Make sure you post all of your Aviatrixes in the Facebook group. I want to see them. Share to all of the sewing groups so everybody learns about the Aviatrix. That would be amazing. And thanks, guys. I will see you next class. Bye.